Welcome back to A Louder with Crowder. So excited to have my next guest. Every now and then I geek out about a guest because I'm a fan, and you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say admirer. So what can you say? Colonel Alan West, thank you so much for being on, sir.
Hey, Mr. Crowder, it's good to be with you, my friend.
Oh, he called me friend. Look how sweet he is. He didn't have to do that, but we'll be sure to slip you an envelope with unmarked bills after the show. So, do you prefer Mr. West, Colonel, professional badass? What should I do here?
Well, I spent 22 years to earn a certain title, and very appreciative of it.
Okay, well, good. That's my grandfather was a colonel in the Air Force.
Wonderful.
And I don't know what the rules are, but he was always complaining about the fact that he was a colonel for decades, and I guess you had to have a college degree to make general. Am I correct?
Well, normally it's preferred that you have that college degree in order to get promoted as an officer, definitely to the rank of captain. So that's one of the things about being commissioned is the requirement for a 4-year college degree.
Yeah, well, that must have came in after because he definitely didn't have that, and he made colonel. And I think the rules were enacted after, and he was always complaining about it. I can rock circles around these generals, and he was a surly old man, but probably the best fighter pilot in the country.
Well, it was all about his skills.
Yeah. And you know what? Funny enough, back then he would have told you that he flew better after a scotch. He was that kind of guy. He was just drank.
Well, as long as he knew where to drop the bombs, I'm okay.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes he was a little too bombed himself. But, it's funny. Okay. Not really funny. It's a little funny, but you're a military guy. Like you said, you've been out there. You've been in there. This is terrestrial, so we won't use the military term. We'll say crap. You've been in the crap. What do you do when you watch what's going on right now with ISIS? And I don't want to put any words in your mouth. I can guess where you're coming from as far as an opinion on the president's handling of it. I know where most conservatives line up. When you sit back and watch this, what goes through your mind, and I guess what would you do differently?
Well, first of all, I would have recognized the enemy, and I would not have allowed a vacuum to be created in Iraq, because basically what has happened is Al-Qaeda in Iraq, which had been defeated. There were cables and communiques that people had intercepted saying that there's no need for the brethren to go into Iraq, all is lost. But we gave life back into them. So a year ago, ISIS was about 3,000 fighters. They were called and referred to as the JV team. Now today they're close to 50 to 60,000. And they have affiliations in about 11 to 12 different countries. They are brilliantly using social media to get their horrific, savage message out, to include this recent one where I think a 10 or 11-year-old kid just executed a man.
Right.
And now we just had earlier this week Boko Haram come out and declare their allegiance. So there is a global Islamic jihadist movement that is happening right under our noses. And we're not doing anything about it. As a matter of fact, what we're doing is decimating our own military capability and capacity.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. As a military guy, a lot of libertarians will get mad and say that you're a war hawk. Where do you balance that line between supporting the military, right, and in reducing the scope of government? I'm 99% sure what your answer is going to be and that it's legitimate. But I know, listen, I got a lot of tweets with people who are upset about that, libertarians who really just believe that we're over-militarized.
Well, I would tell them that the most important responsibility of the federal government is to provide for the common defense. It is not about some of the other things that we see the federal government getting engaged and involved in. So there is a way to develop a fiscally responsible United States military. We cannot, I love it when people quote George Washington in his farewell speech. Well, George Washington could not send a Twitter post halfway around the world. So there's a different environment that we're in, and we have an enemy that even Thomas Jefferson had to contend with during the Barbary Wars that is still on their own march, their own, I'll be very honest, their own crusade for the past 1,400 years against Western civilization. Now, we can continue to, dismiss this enemy, this non-state, non-uniform, unlawful enemy combatant, Islamist enemy, but that is not going to cause them to go away. So we have to confront this. We have to deal with it. And we've made several mistakes across several different administrations that have brought us to this point.
Right. Now, as an example, you have not been shy to criticize people on both sides of the aisle. A lot of people don't know that because what gets out in social media is that studly picture of you in your military uniform with the flat top. You pull it off very well, sir. And so they think that you're only, hardcore military Republican. Now, you, interestingly enough, you supported the Patriot Act, but then came out and, gave some insight as to why you were against it.
Now you just said something that's incorrect. Because
okay,
I did
correct
not support the Patriot Act. What happened was I voted for the 3-month extension of the Patriot Act because, why would I just go and show up and say no? I wanted to be able to understand it. I sent letters to Director Mueller of the FBI. I did my research and due diligence, and when it came up for full renewal, I voted against it.
Right. Well, yes, and I didn't mean to speak out of turn. That's what I was getting to. A lot of people, on Twitter just go, well, ask him about his war crimes supporting the Patriot Act. And what sticks in my mind is the fact that you were so vocal and actually helped educate me on the Patriot Act in your criticism of it. But that doesn't always get out, right, when the leftist media is trying to paint you in a certain way.
Oh, sure.
Exactly.
Which doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me whatsoever because that's their Alinsky tactic. I know the truth.
Right.
And I know what I stood for, and I think that I did help to educate a lot of people about the provisions of the Patriot Act and be able to talk specifically about instances why it should not be renewed. And, of course, that was something that, other members in the Republican Party, to include the then chairman of the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Mike Rogers out of Michigan, he really tried to push me hard, and I said, you can't get my vote on this because, I have empirical, data and proof that it's not doing what it is.
We have to go to a break real quick, but there is no more studly move than that. We'll be right back with Alan West. So sorry to cut you off, Colonel West, Mr. Colonel Alan West, because you're making a good point. And listen, I will tell you this. When it comes to the Patriot Act, actually, reading the transcripts of some of the things that you had spoken about certainly helped educate me on the issue. And that's always why I bring it up. I think anyone who has a history of being in the military, listen, it's no secret that leftists are inherently, anti-military in a way that they don't want to admit, or maybe even in a way that they don't necessarily realize. Do you feel like sometimes, considering, what a storied career you've had, do you feel like sometimes you're a little bit pigeonholed, maybe in the Republican Party, as the military guy when you have more to offer?
Not really. I think that that's part of, the politicized media world that we're in. People try to define you in ways that makes them comfortable. But I believe that my profile is pretty broad enough that, and when you look at my position now as the president and CEO of the National Center for Policy Analysis, the ability to be able to talk about tax policy, entitlement, pension reform policies, monetary policies, regulatory, education, energy, healthcare, as well as national security. I am able to, really show that I have a broad-based understanding, probably a lot better than some of the people sitting in Washington, D.C. right now. So I don't get concerned about how people try to, remake you for their own comfort level because, that's one of the successes, I think, of the AlanBWest.com site where we write on many different issues.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's Colonel Alan West, the Chuck Norris of politics. He just doesn't care.
I don't know about that. Chuck Norris is a pretty tough dude.
I have to tell you, I ran into Chuck Norris at my uncle's country club in Dallas. I just walked into a room. It was some Easter thing. I'm not a country club guy. I know I'll get the hate mail right now from people watching online. You're a country club Republican. Same thing, the pigeonholing. And I walked into a room the only person in the room was Chuck Norris. It was like a banquet room, and he was sitting there at a table. And I know the Machado brothers. We've trained with him. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and judo. But I tell you what, you could fit Chuck Norris in your back pocket. He is not a large man. I was very surprised. So all I'm saying is, if it comes down to you and Chuck, my money would be on the Colonel. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, hopefully I don't see him in a dark alley.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. Listen, we're all friends here. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Let me ask you this. Okay, so obviously, listen, you're a black American, you're not expected to be conservative, right? I mean, Alfonso Rachel, a good friend of mine, I've just read through some of the mail that he gets, and it's absolutely heart-wrenching. Do you feel like you offer perspective that many people out there maybe miss with right now? You know, the narrative is police brutality, hands up, don't shoot. I mean, where do you line up on that, and where do you think maybe Republicans and liberals but both miss it?
Well, it's interesting enough because when you go back and you read the writings of Booker T. Washington, the great Southern black educator at the turn of the century, and he had a 3-point principle or plan, and it was education, entrepreneurship, and self-reliance. And so when you think about those 3 principles, those are not progressive socialist principles. Those are conservative principles. And when you think about what the bedrock of the black community always has been: faith, family, education, which was stressed in my household, even, service to the nation. I mean, my lineage goes all the way back to my dad, who served in World War II, an older brother in Vietnam, and now my nephew is a major serving. So when we just need to have that conversation about principles with the black community. When you think about what progressive socialist policies have done to the black community, 16 million black babies aborted, the decimation of the black family to now you only have 28% of black children that have mother and father in the home. That's where we open up the conversation. When Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York, an avowed socialist, wanted to cancel the charter school programs in New York City, one of the highest performing charter schools in New York City is in Harlem, and it's called Success Academy. And it was single black mothers who made the complaint to Governor Cuomo of New York saying, don't do this. This is an opportunity for our children. So there is the ability to have the conservative conversation. And this is not something new. It's not some trend that a lot of people want to say. And I think that, I hate the word outreach. The Republican Party needs to ban that word. They need to talk about policy inclusiveness. And I think they'll go far.
Right. I don't necessarily, exactly. I don't think you need to sermonize or like you said, conduct outreach. It's really just about being relevant. And
being there. Just be there.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, think about what happened in Ferguson, Missouri. Was a black teenager who is part of a demographic that has a 40% unemployment rate. He comes from an area where I guarantee you there's a failed public school. So all of those opportunities are diminished. There is no small black business entrepreneurship that is going on. As a matter of fact, those 25 businesses that they burned down in Ferguson, they're not coming back. And so it's the lack of opportunity. It's not about hands up, don't shoot. That's the low-hanging fruit that the left wants to use, along with the voting rights thing and all of that. They don't want to talk about the real issues that are afflicting the black community today, and really the inner city and all minority communities. So we need to have that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Let me ask you point blank. You talk about leftist, media who are reaching for that low-hanging fruit, and they're creating this sort of racial division. Do you think our president proactively stokes those fires?
Of course he does, because that is the Saul Alinsky way.
Right.
Whether it be 1% versus 99%, war on women, black versus white, anything that they can use to, promote the collective vision instead of respecting and regard of the individual. And that's the difference between what liberty is and what tyranny is.
Right. No, that's a great point. And gosh, I'm sure you've seen the LAPD tape, right? The LAPD shooting. You've been following that.
A little, yeah.
Okay. Well, if you haven't seen the tape, then it was a situation where there was an illegal alien, convicted bank robber, or wanted, I know, by the U.S. Marshals. I think he was convicted, and they went down and answered a call, tased the guy, didn't work. He swung on a cop. Someone took a cop's nightstick. There was 5 of them, lining up to whack him in the back of the head. The guy got shot. And I watched the videotape. It's always I'm amazed now that our standards are so low that you can actually see the death circulate in news. I don't know about you. I remember there was a time where the rule was you couldn't actually show anyone die. And now it seems like we see that all the time, which is a sad state of affairs in our culture. But the media set that narrative, kind of like Ferguson. I mean, did you see that, and were you like me, maybe just screaming at your TV going, just wait until the information comes in? Are we in an age where people just don't wait, and it's because everything's politically motivated?
Well, of course it is. And when you think about how the left tried to use Ferguson to stoke the fires to get blacks to come out and vote. If you down in Georgia, if you vote for the white guy running for Senate, David Perdue, you could have a Ferguson happen in your neighborhood and community. Pictures of lynchings were put on cars at black churches on Sunday before the election in North Carolina. Yes, people are going to use anything they can to stoke those fires. And you think about the president and how he has, on several occasions, jumped the gun with the Skip Gates incident up there in Boston, at Cambridge University. At Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. This is what people have to do because they can't talk about their policies. They can't talk about really what they stand for. So what they have to always do, I call it the Kansas City Shuffle. You look right, they go left. They put the deception up there. They put the shiny thing up there for you to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And you never really pay attention to their true motives and objectives and goals.
It sounds to me like you're just racist, Colonel West. How dare you come on this show and spew that kind of hate speak? We don't allow it. It's funny. I get this all the time. If you just speak about these issues, of course, unless you line up with the social media narrative, you're immediately accused of being a racist or a bigot. Yeah. Do you experience that as much as a black American conservative?
Oh, of course. Yeah. You're going to get you're an Uncle Tom, you're a sellout, white man's porch monkey, Oreo. You get it all.
I can't believe you said that on air. I've never heard that on air, but continue, please.
No, but see, the thing is, that's an indicator that you're winning the debate.
Right.
When they have to, when they are relegated to that level of despicable name calling and denigrating you, and just the same as I tell, white Americans, when they call you a racist, you can't self-censor because that is the Pavlovian response that you have been giving them, and so that's why they continue to use it. Right. So you can't shut up. You have to continue to talk about the issues and continue to talk about the points. Look, I don't hear anyone coming out and praising the president for the University of Oklahoma for the swift action he took against that fraternity down there. Right. He as soon as he found out, he gave him 24 hours. And he should be praised for that because he is not tolerating that type of behavior.
Right. No, that's a good point. And do you think, seeing as you're someone who's able to look at both sides critically, do you think the right plays into it a little too easily sometimes, even on right-leaning media?
Yeah. There are times when, we go into what we call in the military the U-shaped ambush, and we have to be smarter about that. But then again, I would say you cannot allow the left to always fall back on that age-old thing, you don't like him because he's black. Eric Holder was not a good attorney general because of his skin color. He was not a good attorney general because he was deceitful, he told lies, and he was not a fair adjudicator of justice. And he even said that. He even said that he took pride in being a social activist. So that's why he was not appreciated. We still don't know about Fast and Furious.
I know. It's very hard to get your plus. Let's be honest. The real reason is Eric Holder looks like Ned Flanders, and I find that offensive. Okay. So we talk about this. We talk about. And I'm sure you get these questions all the time, and people asking these questions, race-related questions. And I'm sorry to be another one, but I think with my audience, it's a younger audience on YouTube and terrestrially. They'll want to hear this. Let me ask you this. I don't get super political on the show all the time because if people just harp on the same thing, it gets to be old. But you're a guy who knows his stuff here really well. What would you say are the biggest, the winningest issues for conservatives right now in America? What should they focus on?
Is the preeminence of the individual, their rights and their liberty, and the equality of opportunity as opposed to the collective vision of equality of outcomes. That is the clear separation between who we are and who they are. The fact that they believe not in the pursuit of happiness as opposed to a guarantee of happiness, and that guarantee of happiness comes from the government. And when you talk about our young people, the thing that our young people need to come to understand is that their future is at risk. When you look at their future as far as their economic security and their future as far as their national security.
Right.
And so that should be something that we should easily be able to convey. When you have young people, and I have a daughter, 21, who will be graduating from college in May. When you have young people that are leaving college and they're having to go back and stay at home with mommy and daddy because there are no job opportunities out there for them, and they have immense amount of debt, that's not the American dream. And so, we need to talk again about the shining city that sits upon a hill and how we're going to do that which Americans have always done to ensure that a better and brighter future is ahead for the subsequent generations. That's how you have a mother and father. My dad was born in 1920, my mother in 1931 down south in Georgia and Alabama. And look at where I am today. It's because they cared about my future. And we need to make that clear delineation that we have a vision for this country, for this constitutional republic. The other side doesn't.
What a great point. What a great way to leave it. And for the people listening, even if you take Colonel West's advice, it doesn't mean that you'll be able to pull off the high and tight as well as he does, as well as he put it. So be careful. There are very few who can wear it well. You, sir, thank you so much. You've been a fantastic guest, and really appreciate you taking the time. Hey, if you enjoyed that interview with Alan West, click my face to subscribe right now. I wish it were a better looking face. Or watch this previous video. You might enjoy it, you might not, but at that point you've already clicked it, so I don't really care.